Sandra and I are about to take a tour, a guided tour through Fort Dobbs, and they did say that I could record, so I'm going to record this for y'all, for some of you that may be unable to come out here or maybe want to see what it's all about. But it looked like it's definitely something to bring the kids out and give them some good education on our history, rich history.
Coming into here, the Yadkin and the Catawba River valleys. By the time the fort is put here, the soldiers arrived here in summer of 1755. Where downtown Statesville is today, there's about 20 or so families living in that area, kind of centered around a Presbyterian church. If you go about 20 miles west of here, you cross the Catawba River, come to where Hickory is today. There's a settlement of about 20 or so primarily German families out in there. Then about another 40 or so families from down along the south fork of the Catawba and the Broad River down towards South Carolina. So this is the western edge of settlement at the time, kind of the western frontier. And by the 1754, the French and Indian War has started up in the backwoods of Pennsylvania, kind of where Pittsburgh is today. The French claiming the area known as the Ohio Country. The English, particularly the colony of Virginia, also want that land to expand west. And so in 1754, Virginia actually sends troops into the area under the command of a young, inexperienced George Washington, and he'll kind of stumble into a war that spreads throughout the colonies quickly here in North America, eventually around the world, as they're fighting in Europe, the Philippines, the Caribbean, India, Africa, pretty much all around the world. Kind of the First World War. And so by 1755, the western settlers here in North Carolina are beginning to come under attack from Shawnee Indians, who are allies with the French. They're attacking those families to the west of Fort Dobbs here. So it prompts Governor Dobbs, who's arrived in North Carolina in 1754, to send soldiers out here on this frontier to protect these folks. And eventually to build a fort. There's no defenses out here than most full-time soldiers here. So these 50 North Carolina soldiers come here to begin construction of the fort probably December of 1755 and finish by the summer of 1756. So as we walk a little closer here, you'll notice there's a ditch that surrounds the fort. That's the original defensive ditch that was found in the real.
Right here?
No, right
up
where the line is.
Okay, where the line is, like a moat almost?
Yeah, it was a ditch. Originally that ditch was about 4 feet deep.
Really?
There's been a lot of erosion and farming over here now. It has a lot shallower now, but originally it's been about 4 feet deep, and it would have had stockade walls got over a small section over there.
Yeah.
That would have extended all the way around the fort, kind of where the rope line is. This kind of outer defensive ring to protect the fort. The fort itself here, this reconstruction is based off of several written descriptions we have of the fort. One's detailed, gives the dimensions, how tall the walls were, how thick they were, what it was built from, all that kind of information.
Wow.
So this is a full-scale reproduction that sits right where the original fort would have sat. In the late 60s, early 70s, they did full-scale archaeological digs here. Again, uncovered about 6,000 artifacts.
Wow.
The cellar of the fort had been, there was a well inside the fort, all this ditch here, all pinpointing this as a location in the fort. 6,000
artifacts they found?
It came off of this small hilltop here.
Oh my goodness.
Things like we got in the ditch here, broken pottery, broken bottles, animal bones, that sort of thing. They found a lot of those in the ditch.
Wow.
Kind of recreated a little bit of that there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of the stuff that we break around here. So we'll head inside. If we got any questions as we go through,
okay.
Feel free to stop and ask. We do ask that you don't touch or pick up anything.
Okay.
I'll try to keep things as clean as we can.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Here, you go ahead. I'll go.
It's nice and cool in here. Does it stay pretty cool in the summertime in here?
It does. Yeah, these
Okay.
walls are 16-inch thick oak logs. It insulates as well. So it's kind of cold in the winter, but it usually stays pretty cool in the summer also. This room here we have set up as a supply room or a storeroom for the fort. With some 50 soldiers, a lot of food, equipment, and that sort of thing to keep those guys happy. So they need somewhere to store that. Again, there was also a cellar on the eastern half of the fort for cool food storage, that sort of thing. There's also a gunpowder magazine dug in the back corner of that cellar. So this room, you look around and you see lead, gunpowder, musket balls, all sent here to the fort to supply these soldiers. Also, local militias at times are helping these soldiers patrol this area, as well as the Native Americans at the time here in North Carolina, the Cherokee over in the North Carolina mountains, and the Catawba who lived down where, kind of below where Charlotte is today. Both allies with the English at that time, so they're being supplied also as they help these soldiers in this area. They go up as far away as Pennsylvania and New York alongside these soldiers. Fighting against the French. These barrels here would contain a lot of food that's sent to the fort. They tons, things like rice and dried peas that's going to store well. Also flour or cornmeal, as well as salted meat, either beef or pork, beef packed in those barrels. We think at times we're getting fresh meat also. They found a lot of animal bones in the archaeology. They indicated they were butchering animals here. Also some deer bones found in the archaeology. So each soldier in his ration each day gets about a pound of meat and a pound of bread, along with some of the dry goods. Things like butter, soap, salt, and candles also issued to the soldiers.
Wow.
And how many soldiers did they think was?
50 soldiers.
About 50, okay.
Yeah, 50. That's the one.
Oh, so they had 50 on this fort here.
Yeah, 50 soldiers.
Okay.
That's one company of soldiers stationed here throughout the war. The level fluctuates a little bit throughout the war, but typically about 50.
Wow.
The building is really built and designed to house 50 soldiers that are sent out here. So come to this room. This is the rear flanker building. If you notice when we came by the opposite front corner, we have a building that sticks out on that corner. These are basically defensive features. It allows musket fire to go from any direction from the inside of the fort. Governor Dobbs, who designed the fort, describes it as a fortified barracks building, basically a house for the soldiers to live in, but also a place that they're fighting from.
Wow.
These loopholes here provide places to fire muskets from. The description says about 100 muskets can be fired from each floor.
Really?
Yeah.
And it could take some fire too.
Yeah, these walls are 16-inch thick white oak logs. More than enough to stop a musket ball from an Indian out here. This rear flanker also housed the fort's water source. There was a well dug inside the fort. We excavated that to about 40 feet deep when we did the excavation.
Really?
Oh, wow.
This sits right over top of where the original well.
Really?
Yeah.
It's so neat.
How far down is it?
This one's capped off at the ground level.
Okay.
But it sits right over where the original
was.
Like I say, they excavated it to about 40 feet.
What, they found anything inside of it?
No, and actually the first excavations that take place out here actually happened in 1847. There had been a rumor that when the soldiers abandoned the fort, they dropped the cannons from the fort down the well.
Oh, really?
And so local citizens here in Statesville got curious. Out here, dug down to the bottom of the well, and didn't find anything.
Oh, no.
So that was just a rumor.
Wow. Yeah. What? Still, though, that is amazing. That's a neat information to know that. They put the cannons down in there.
Yeah, that was
I guess they just didn't want anybody else.
Well, that was the rumor that they had dropped it, but they didn't find any.
Oh, they didn't find anything.
Okay, so it wasn't a practice or anything like that. Okay.
It could have been, if the enemy was coming and you had to leave quickly.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case for this fort.
I got you.
When the war ends, they would have taken those cannons back to be used again. Yeah.
Amazing.
So this room here, one of the 4 enlisted soldiers' barracks rooms throughout the fort. There were the main center section here, 3 stories. There are 6 large rooms throughout the fort, a central chimney that goes up. So basically 2 rooms per floor. Probably 4 of those rooms set up like this to house the 50 soldiers, about 12 soldiers per room. So they're organized into small groups. 6 soldiers, called a mess of soldiers.
Okay.
And so 2 messes in this room. Serves as their kitchen, their dining room, living room, bedroom, kind of all rolled into one.
Wow.
Original tiny house, I guess.
Yeah.
The soldiers are responsible for cooking their own food. There's no mess hall or central kitchen they can go to get food. They issue their rations in the storeroom, bring them here to the fireplace, cook those.
So they get their rations and they're responsible for
Yeah.
feeding and taking care of their own
Right.
needs.
Yeah.
Okay.
No cook here at the fort.
Gotcha.
Their responsibility.
Wow.
People sleep in the bunk beds here. Be 2 soldiers per bed. So they share the straw mattress and the straw pillow there. Each soldier is issued his own wool blanket. So you share the bed, but at least you get your own blanket.
Wow.
The
Interesting.
red, coats here on the bed are typical what these soldiers will be issued for uniforms. North Carolina during this period is very poor colony. There's not a lot of money in the colony. And so it's a struggle each year for North Carolina to equip, feed, and even arm the soldiers they are able to raise. Kind of a common theme throughout the war. In fact, they never receive a full uniform, typically just the coat. A couple of years they get the coat and a pair of pants to match. The rest of the clothes is what they brought
Really?
when they signed up. Yeah. These are full-time, again, North Carolina soldiers. They're not British regulars coming over from England. They're soldiers raised here in the colony. Each colony typically would raise their own provincial soldiers that can be used throughout the colony for what they would need. Here, again, they provide a full-time defense force out here on the frontier. For weapons, these soldiers are issued this replica of the Dutch muskets sent over at the beginning of the war. This period, of course, are flintlock weapons. As most military weapons are, they're smooth bores and a rifling on the inside. So it's basically a big shotgun.
Wow.
They fire this lead ball here. It's about 1 ounce of lead. Being smooth bore, they can fire also the smaller buckshot. Or a combination of the two. They can fire. In fact, when the battle happens here, we know the soldiers were loaded with 1 musket ball and 7 buckshot on top of that. They load with these paper cartridges that would be probably prepared here at the fort. Basically a tube of paper that's rolled up. There's a musket ball down here in the bottom, and then a black powder on top of that. To time and load 1 shot. They are muzzle loading, load them through the barrel here. They're single shot. You have to reload each shot individually. But using those paper cartridges, a trained soldier can load and fire about 3 to 4 aimed shots a minute with this weapon.
Wow.
It's about 15 to 20 seconds to get it reloaded.
Yeah.
Which sounds slow for today's military.
Yeah.
But a single shot muzzle loading weapon is not too bad.
Mm.
And these are accurate. It's about 100 yards.
Okay.
Enemy soldier. They're deadly up to 300 yards. You'll hit something at that range, but probably not what you were aiming at.
Yeah. Wow. 300 yards.
The early years of the war, things are pretty quiet here in North Carolina. Most of the fighting is going on up in Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, on up into Canada. So these soldiers are sent up that way, as far away as Pennsylvania and New York, to fight alongside the English against the French. Most of those times are taking Native American allied warriors with them. Here in North Carolina, of course, the Cherokee and the Catawba are sending warriors throughout the war. By 1758, that relationship with the Cherokee is going to start to break down. The Cherokee have sent almost 1,000 warriors to Pennsylvania to fight in 1758 alongside the English. As they're coming back home down through Virginia in the fall of the year to get back home. Here in North Carolina, about 40 of those Cherokee are killed by the Virginia colonists. Kind of a case of mistaken identity. And about 40 of those Cherokee are killed, and so obviously it doesn't set well with the Cherokee. They fought alongside the English all summer. Now these 40 warriors have been killed by the English. They'll try diplomatic means to end the situation with the governor of Virginia for almost a year without receiving satisfaction. So by 1759, they began a retaliation attacks here in western North Carolina along the frontier here, and about 40 or so settlers will be killed or captured that spring by the Cherokee. And the situation kind of continues to escalate into a full-on war here in western North Carolina between the former friends, the English and the Cherokee.
Wow.
The last for a few years.
Wow.
We'll talk more about that upstairs. Any questions?
No.
Okay.
That's really, it's really interesting. I've never been in one of these forts before.
Well, I do have a question.
Yes.
Whenever y'all are doing the reenactments, are people in here actually doing stuff?
Oh, we do, yeah. Of course,
Okay.
you know, the last year's been a little different.
Uh-huh.
Typically, yeah, we have soldiers in here sleeping on the beds, cooking in the fires. And,
That's cool.
yeah, the fort kind of comes to life.
Okay. We'll have to remember that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, our
really
next
cool.
scheduled event is June 26th. I believe.
June 26th?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
We can head upstairs.
Okay. You coming? Unless you're gonna make them all breakfast.
Yeah, cook us something nice.
Yeah, good cook them. Some of that salted meat would be good about now.
So this room here, a lot fancier, a lot nicer than the room below.
Yeah.
This will be the officers' quarters. A company of 50 soldiers will include 4 officers who are in charge of the soldiers. In this period, officers are typically wealthy men, men of status, that sort of thing. So receive their commission in the military. So being wealthy, kind of the soldiers are kind of coming from the bottom end of society. These officers kind of coming from the top end. So they're going to be used to the finer things, and so they're going to bring those things out here with them as they serve.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to provide their own uniforms. You can see on the chair there. A lot nicer coat than the soldiers receive.
Yeah.
The waistcoat and the hat and things over here on the bed will be for the officers' uniforms.
They have nutmeg.
Yeah, what?
They have nutmeg, a little grater to grate it on.
Yeah, nutmeg was one of the most popular spices in the period. If you read,
Really?
yeah, if you read a lot of the cookbooks and the recipes.
Yeah,
you
that's
see-
a jar of nutmeg, and that's the little grater they
Yeah,
grated it
you see
on.
nutmeg throughout those recipe books.
See,
Wow.
It's not just for putting over eggnog.
Yeah.
The commanding officer of this fort is Captain Hugh Waddell. When he arrives here in the summer of 1755, he's 21 years old.
Mhm.
He had served the previous year in a North Carolina regiment sent to Virginia. So Governor Dobbs places him in command of this company when it's formed. He oversees the construction of the fort, serves as kind of emissary between the English and the Native Americans here in this part of North Carolina. He served throughout the war, ending the war as a colonel, basically in charge of all North Carolina soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
By the time he dies at age 39 in 1774, he's a general in charge of all of North Carolina's military, basically at that time. Some of the paperwork and things that would be involved with the officers' jobs, running the business of the garrison, and to free up their time to do those sorts of things. They would have servants who do their cooking, their cleaning, that sort of thing.
Ah.
The servants are enlisted soldiers that they pay extra to do those services for them.
Wow.
And this would look like foreign language to elementary school students.
I know. That's some of the best handwriting I've ever
Very
seen.
pretty handwriting.
I'm serious. I'm serious.
What does that say?
That is amazing.
Yeah, the government of North Carolina, the governor were down, during this period, were down kind of where Wilmington and New Bern is today. So it's pretty long supply lines of the fort. Supplies will be sent from the coast up into Salisbury, which was the closest town to the fort at the time.
Mhm.
Salisbury had been founded just a couple years before. The fort's built in 1753.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, this was a newly formed Rowan County.
Yeah, that's something. Is it true? I've always heard it told that Rowan County was way bigger than what it.
Yeah, all of this was Rowan County.
We're from.
Yeah, we're from Rowan County, and so I've heard that.
Basically, where it is today, basically all this western end of the state was.
Was Rowan County?
Yeah, and all the other counties were kind of carved out of.
Oh my God! I didn't realize it was that big.
Yeah.
We
Wow.
actually camping in all 100 counties in North Carolina.
Right, yeah.
That's our goal.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we were at Tanglewood, Tanglewood Park,
Yeah.
and we saw a grave, and it said Rowan County on
Rowan
it.
County. They were from Rowan County.
Yeah, and it just, and I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
And but I had heard that. I had heard that before. That is quite amazing
Yeah.
to know that. Wow. Interesting. Huh.
We'll head across the hall here. This is another soldier's barracks room we have set up again. Probably out of the 6 main rooms, 4 of them set up like this, with about 12 soldiers in each room to house those 50 soldiers. We'll head into the rear flanker here. This is the upstairs where we were downstairs
Okay.
a minute ago. So you can see the larger windows up here, elevated position. You got look out and get a good view of the countryside. At the
You
time,
can't
this
see a
was,
long way.
Yeah.
At the time, this was all described as open grassland. Native Americans had burned the land for hundreds of years. Even before the Europeans get here, many for hunting practices.
Yeah.
So they had left this center section of North Carolina. They call it the Piedmont Prairie, kind of big open grassland. Most of the wooded areas along where the creeks and river bottoms were. So this hilltop, kind of naturally open, place to put the fort. Larger windows here would be where the cannons of the fort are placed. We know they had at least 6 of these small cannons here. It's called a half-pound or a swivel gun, usually used on board ships. They're small, so they're easy to transport up here to the fort.
Wow.
And they either fire this half-pound iron ball here. That is accurate. The muskets are accurate to about 100 yards. This cannon is accurate to about 300 yards.
Wow.
The neighbor's White House across the road there would be an accurate range.
Really?
Of this gun, yeah.
Woo!
And that's just a solid shot. It doesn't go out and blow up like in the movies.
Yeah.
It just goes real fast, puts a big hole in one, it hits and keeps on going.
So you don't see the big boom, like they don't do anything like that. We saw down at Southport a little cannon like this, and I was wondering what they used something like that for, and it very well could have been for something like this.
Fort Johnston, built about used in 1748.
It's called Thor.
No, I'm talking about that little one. Remember the little one in the thrift store?
Oh,
They were selling it for
they were
like.
selling one. You're right.
It was like, I don't know, how much was it? $3,200 or something? No, it was $7,500, I think is what it was.
Yeah,
And so-
we were walking around at night in the thrift store, and it was.
Yeah, they had it in a window, and I was it's probably for something like this
That's a
then.
little miniature looking.
Yeah, it was, and I was thinking to myself, why would they need such a little teeny tiny cannon?
Yeah.
And so something like this is probably.
Yeah, for closer range, they use grape shot. That's a paper bag there. There's 12 of those musket balls, like saw below in there. Of course, when you fire that into the cannon there, the paper burns and tears away. Basically turning this into a big shotgun, so it's musket balls.
Wow.
Huh. Wow.
Isn't that something?
That is something.
Yeah.
So these cannons and muskets and soldiers would fight a battle here in February of 1760 against the Cherokee. That war that got started. Once the Cherokee began their attacks here in western North Carolina, the governor of South Carolina gets involved, sends an army actually toward the Cherokee, demanding that they turn over any warriors who killed settlers here. They respond by sending an envoy of 23 peace chiefs to meet with him to try again diplomatically to end the situation. In South Carolina, they'll wind up killing all but 3 of those Cherokee diplomats. So once that happens, there have been further encroachments on Cherokee lands, other things of that nature. And so the Cherokee are kind of fed up and begin a full-on war here. Attacks that range from here all the way down into where Winston-Salem is today, about 4 miles east of here. So on the evening of February 27th, part of that war, the fort itself will be attacked. We have a letter from Hugh Waddell, the commander here. He writes 2 days after the battle. In fact, if you look out the windows across the road, it's just a farm field today. And you kind of see where that cedar tree is there in the center of the field. Waddell says it's between about 8 and 9 o'clock at night. He hears disturbances outside the fort. He knows the Cherokee are in the area. The settlers have left their homes, come here to the fort for refuge. And so Waddell will lead a patrol of 10 soldiers. He says about 300 yards from the fort, so about where that cedar tree is there in the field. When he gets out in the open, it's dark, and he's encountered by a party of, he estimates 60 to 70 Cherokee, kind of from the bottom of the hill, probably where that tree line is. Opens fire on this small party, then rushes forward. He says, the tomahawking with the scalpel shall take his prisoner. Waddell commands his soldiers to hold their fire until he says they're 12 steps distant. Only about 30 feet, those Cherokee are rushing forward. And if Waddell finally gives the command to fire, they fire into the faces of the oncoming Cherokee. Kind of stops that advance long enough for the soldiers to begin retreating back to the fort. While that's happened, there's more Cherokee have started attacking the fort. They kind of get in between Waddell and the fort, probably, from one account we have. So he kind of has to fight his way back to the fort. He will get all 10 of his soldiers back inside the fort. 2 of them will be wounded before they can get inside. One was scalped, and he would die a few weeks later.
Wow.
There's a small boy that's killed here during the battle from one of those families. And what else estimates about 10 or 12 of the Cherokee are killed and wounded also. So that battle, maybe 15 to 20 minutes or so. Once everybody gets inside, the Cherokee move out to attack other settlements and things in the area. But that war with the Cherokee will wage throughout 1760 and 61. It will finally come to an end. The British military gets involved to try to end the bloodshed. They send 2 large armies against the Cherokee into the far North Carolina mountains, kind of where Murphy, North Carolina is today. By the end of 1761, the Cherokee are pretty well decimated. They've lost more than 20 of their villages and towns burned to the ground. Thousands of acres of their corn crop have been destroyed by the English soldiers. And finally, about 4,000 Cherokee refugees flee over the mountains into what is eastern Tennessee today. The war comes to an end. By November of 1761. So that will be the last year. The troops are actually stationed here at the fort. Once the war ends, of course, the frontier moves west again rapidly. So within just a few years, people are living 60 or 70 miles west of this point. So the fort's kind of obsolete. No war, no frontier.
Yeah.
So they abandoned it by the mid-1760s, and the building just sits here. Starts to deteriorate pretty quickly. Somebody using the building.
Yeah.
And so as more people move in, they start to salvage the usable logs and boards. There was a school built a few miles north of here with some of the logs.
Yeah, I was just curious if somebody would have taken it and made a home out of it,
And so by the early 1800s, the original fort is completely gone from here, we think. Have been removed. The ditches in the cellar are all filled in and plowed under and just turned back into farmland. Almost forgotten about until the early 20th century, 1909. The Daughters of the American Revolution knew this is the area the fort was. They purchased this land, began to preserve it. Through their work, the archaeological digs are done in the late 60s, early 70s. They donate the land to the state in
Good
the
deal.
early 70s.
Good deal.
So, thanks to that
So when
group.
they originally bought the land, they thought that's where it was, but they weren't sure?
They had a pretty good idea that where the cellar had been, there was kind of a depression in the ground. Local legend had that the fort was here on this hilltop. So they had a pretty good idea.
Plus, you got the well.
Yeah, the well.
They had.
Well shaft was there. So it was pretty good indication this was.
Plus all the stuff you found.
Right.
On top of that, you're probably right on it.
Yeah.
But impressive, very, very impressive.
Yeah, the reconstruction efforts started in the early 2000s, about 2003. We've got a nonprofit group, Friends of Fort Dobbs, that started to raise money with hopes of building the fort again one day. They worked for about 15 years to get the money to get started. And construction started in August of 2016. Lasted for 3 years until August of 2019. So the fort's been open since September of 2019.
Really? Wow, it's been that recent then. Okay.
So ironically, it took the original soldiers about 10 months to build theirs. It took us 3 years to rebuild it. They didn't have building codes and labor laws.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Permits and all that stuff.
Right, yeah.
Well, cool deal.
The logs for the walls are white oak logs. It came to us from the surrounding 4 counties. Most of them were donated to the project, private landowners that had land and logs.
Yeah.
About 300 logs just in the walls itself.
Really? 300 logs?
Yeah.
I tell you what, it's stout.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
We do have living history events and reenactments throughout the year. Our next scheduled one is in June. I think June 26th is the date on that.
Okay.
We just had this last weekend was the 261st anniversary of the battle. We actually had a virtual event on our Facebook page. If you go on there, you can see a whole list of videos that we put out throughout.
Okay.
Talking about the battle and the soldiers and the Cherokee and the settlers who were here during the battle.
Okay.
So I hope you enjoyed it.
I have really enjoyed it. You are quite informative. You know your stuff. And so, we like to share this with people and stuff, and it just, you know, there's a lot of families and stuff. We homeschooled our kids, and she was a docent at a at the Hall House in Salisbury.
Okay.
And so our kids, to supplement their education on Civil War, they decided to. Well, they went to go visit the Hall House in Salisbury.
The Hall House, and we found out we could be docents at the Hall House. And our son, like I said, was fascinated with history.
Yeah.
And our daughter, like I said, not so much. She would sit in the corner in her little costume.
But yeah, they were docents, and
we did the elementary school tours.
Yeah, it was funny that we were a homeschool family, but she was over the public school tours, and but it was really neat. They wore the attire of the time and stuff, and it was really neat. The Christmas time, they decorate, you know, Christmas trees and stuff like that in every room, and so it is very, you know, it was really something else. And our kids, I mean, they liked it because they got to not only learn about Civil War and stuff, but they got a chance to actually, you know, do something physically, you know, with it and stuff, and so.